The ship's landing gear crunched against the sun-baked surface of the alien planet, sending a plume of fine golden sand into the air. Lena Carter stepped down from the hatch, her heart racing with excitement and apprehension. Before her lay an expanse of vast desert, stretching endlessly under a canopy of twinkling stars. The air felt different here, crisp and charged with a hint of something ancient. Lena adjusted her gear, brushing the sandy grit from her boots as she took a deep breath, filling her lungs with the unfamiliar atmosphere. "All right, Lena, let's see what secrets you hold," she murmured to herself, her eyes glinting with determination. As she ventured forward, the vastness of the desert enveloped her. The desert was alive with the whispers of the wind, and the distant hum of an unseen life force resonated through the air. Lena recalled the tale she had heard about the Raveniks, the colossal beast that roamed these dunes, a creature of myth and terror for many galactic civilizations. But Lena was not one to shy away from the unknown. Instead, she felt an insatiable curiosity drawing her deeper into the heart of the desert. Hours passed as Lena trekked through the shifting sands, her boots leaving fleeting imprints behind. Suddenly, she stumbled upon something unexpected. Half buried under the golden grains, she found a series of artifacts, intricate carvings and strange glowing stones that pulsed gently with a soft light. Kneeling down, she brushed the sand away, revealing more of the ancient civilization's remnants. "What on earth, or rather what on this planet is this?" she exclaimed, her fingers tracing the delicate patterns. The carvings depicted scenes of a majestic creature, larger than life, surrounded by figures that appeared to be worshipping it. Lena's brow furrowed as she examined the images. They did not depict fear. Instead, they radiated reverence. They revered the Raveniks, she realized aloud, her voice barely above a whisper. But why? Her mind raced with possibilities as she collected a few of the smaller artifacts, placing them carefully in her pack. This discovery could change everything she thought she knew about the Raveniks and the civilizations that once thrived here. With renewed purpose, Lena continued her exploration. After a while, she reached a steep cliff that overlooked the vast expanse of the desert. Climbing cautiously, she found herself standing at the precipice, the wind whipping through her hair. Below, the sand shimmered like liquid gold, and the horizon stretched endlessly. It was then that she saw it. Her heart skipped a beat. The Raveniks stood majestically against the backdrop of the setting sun, its colossal form silhouetted against the fiery sky. Lena's breath caught in her throat. The creature was unlike anything she had ever seen. Its scales glimmered with hues of deep blue and green, reflecting the dying light in a mesmerizing display. It was both terrifying and beautiful, a living legend materialized before her eyes. "Oh my God!" Lena gasped, her heart pounding in her chest. "It's real." As she watched, the Raveniks turned its massive head, its eyes locking onto her with an intensity that made Lena's skin prickle. She felt an inexplicable connection in that moment, a pull that urged her forward despite the fear rippling through her. This was not just a monster, this was a being with a history, a story yet untold. "Should I approach?" she whispered to herself, weighing her options. The instinct to flee battled with the desire to understand. Taking a deep breath, Lena made her decision. She carefully descended the cliff, her heart racing as she drew closer to the creature. The Raveniks remained still, its gaze fixed on her, as if waiting for her next move. With cautious resolve, Lena extended her hand, palm out, in a gesture of peace. "Easy there," she murmured, her voice steady despite the tremors of fear within her. "I mean you no harm." For a long moment, the desert fell silent. The only sound was the soft rustle of sand as the Raveniks shifted slightly. Then, to her astonishment, the creature took a tentative step closer, its massive form towering over her. Lena's heart raced as the creature lowered its head, allowing her to reach out and touch its scales. As her fingers brushed against the cool, smooth surface, a wave of emotions washed over her. It was as if the creature was sharing its memories, its pain, and its loneliness. Lena's heart ached as she realized that the Raveniks was not just a monster of legend, it was a being burdened with a tragic past, longing for understanding in a world that saw it only as a threat. As Lena Carter stood at the edge of the rocky outcrop, the wind tousled her hair as she peered down at the colossal creature below. The sunlight glinted off the Raveniks' massive scales, illuminating its form with a golden hue that was both mesmerizing and terrifying. Despite her heart racing with a mixture of fear and awe, a fierce determination surged within her. She had not come here to flee, she had come to understand. Taking a deep breath, Lena stepped forward, her heart pounding in her chest. I have to try, she murmured to herself, her voice barely audible over the howling wind. With cautious steps, she descended the rocky slope, each movement calculated as she approached the Raveniks. The creature's eyes, deep and ancient, seemed to observe her with a mix of curiosity and wariness. As she drew closer, Lena extended her hand, palm open, a gesture of peace. I mean you no harm, she called out, her voice steady despite the tremor in her hands. I just want to understand. To her astonishment, the Raveniks did not react with aggression. Instead, it tilted its massive head, its eyes narrowing as if assessing her sincerity. Lena held her breath, waiting for the inevitable roar or the fearsome display of teeth. Instead, the creature took a tentative step forward, its enormous body casting a shadow over her. Please, Lena whispered, feeling an inexplicable connection surge between them. I want to help. To her astonishment, the Raveniks lowered its head, bringing its scales closer to her outstretched hand. With a mix of trepidation and exhilaration, Lena reached out and touched the cool, rough surface of its scales. As her fingers made contact, a jolt of energy coursed through her, and she was flooded with a torrent of emotions and vivid images. Visions flashed before her eyes, the Raveniks standing tall against a backdrop of a devastated landscape, surrounded by the remnants of its once thriving habitat. She felt its anguish, the weight of centuries of solitude and the burden of being branded a terror. The memories cascaded over her, images of the creature being hunted, its kin falling victim to the greed and fear of other beings. Lena gasped as the sorrow enveloped her, the pain of the Raveniks intertwining with her own. I see you, she whispered, tears welling in her eyes. You are not a monster. You are a survivor. In that moment, the connection deepened, and Lena could sense the creature's thoughts echoing in her mind. It shared its fears and its longing for companionship, revealing the weight of its existence. The Raveniks was not merely a beast, it was a being shaped by loss and fear, forced to live as a legend of terror. As Lena withdrew her hand, the creature's gaze locked onto hers, and she felt a profound understanding pass between them. You've suffered so much, she said softly, her voice trembling with empathy. But you don't have to be alone anymore. The Raveniks let out a low, rumbling sound, like a distant thunder, and Lena recognized it as a response, a tentative agreement. The realization struck her like a lightning bolt. This creature, feared by so many, yearned for companionship just as she did. Let's change how they see you, Lena said, her voice filled with resolve. Together, we can show them the truth. The Raveniks' eyes glimmered with something akin to hope, and Lena felt a surge of determination welling up within her. She knew that their journey had only just begun, but she was ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead. With a newfound sense of purpose, she stepped back, taking in the creature before her. Let's show them that you are not a monster, but a guardian, a friend. As Lena stood in the shadow of the Raveniks, the colossal creature's shimmering scales glinted in the sunlight, casting a kaleidoscope of colors across the rocky terrain. Her heart raced, not just from fear, but from an overwhelming sense of connection. As the creature's deep, rumbling breaths echoed around her, she felt as though she was standing on the precipice of something monumental. With a trembling hand, she reached out, brushing her fingers against the cool, textured surface of the Raveniks' flank. The moment she made contact, a surge of energy coursed through her, electrifying her very being. Visions flooded her mind, fleeting images of a lush world, vibrant with life, now scarred and desolate. She gasped, overwhelmed by the emotions that washed over her, grief, pain, and an unyielding sense of loss. Why do you carry so much sorrow? She whispered, her voice trembling in the stillness of the desert air. The Raveniks shifted slightly, its enormous head lowering to meet her gaze. In that moment, she felt a profound understanding, as if the creature was trying to communicate with her beyond words. It was then that she began to see it, memories not her own, but the creature's. She saw a time when the Raveniks roamed freely, unafraid, its presence a source of awe and reverence among the alien tribes that once honored it. She witnessed a vibrant festival, where beings of various shapes and sizes danced under the light of two moons. Laughter, joy, and then a sudden horrific shift. The images darkened, and Lena felt the creature's anguish as it experienced a betrayal, hunters with malicious intent, driven by greed, turning the once revered guardian into a monster. Lena stumbled backward, her heart heavy with empathy. You were a protector, weren't you? She murmured, her voice cracking. They turned you into a legend of fear. In response, the Raveniks gave a low, mournful growl, its massive eyes shining with unshed tears. Lena felt an echo of its pain resonate within her own heart. I know what it's like to lose, she said, her voice barely above a whisper. I lost my team on a mission. I made mistakes that cost lives. As the memories of her past tragedies surged forth, Lena was transported back to that fateful day, flashes of chaos, the roar of their ship's alarms, the faces of her comrades as they faced their doom. She felt the weight of guilt pressing down on her chest. I couldn't save them, she confessed, her voice trembling with the weight of her grief. I should have done more. The Raveniks shifted closer, as if sensing her turmoil. In a moment of shared vulnerability, Lena felt a ripple of warmth emanating from the creature, enveloping her in a cocoon of solace. It was a silent acknowledgement that they were not so different after all. Both had suffered, both had been cast aside by those who feared what they didn't understand. Do you feel it too? Lena asked, her voice filled with awe. The pain of being misunderstood? The Raveniks lowered its head further, almost as if nodding in agreement. Lena pressed her palm against its scales once more, feeling a strong pulse beneath her fingers, a heartbeat that resonated with her own. We're not alone in this, she said, her voice steadier now. We can find strength in each other. In that instant, something shifted within Lena. The fear that had initially gripped her began to dissipate, replaced by a burgeoning sense of purpose. She realized that the Raveniks was not merely a beast to be feared, it was a lost soul, just like her, yearning for connection and understanding. Together, she breathed, a newfound determination igniting within her. We can show them the truth. We can change their hearts. The Raveniks exhaled deeply, a sound that reverberated through the vastness of the desert, almost as if it were echoing Lena's resolve. In that shared silence, an unbreakable bond was forged, a promise between two beings who had both faced darkness and emerged with courage, ready to confront whatever lay ahead. As swirling sands of the desert whipped around Lena as she stood beside the imposing figure of the Raveniks, the creature's massive form towered over her, its scales shimmering under the waning sun. They had just weathered a fierce sandstorm, and Lena could still feel the adrenaline coursing through her veins from their narrow escape. The bond they had forged in such a short time was extraordinary, yet it was not without its challenges. The air crackled with tension as they approached the outskirts of a nearby alien settlement, where a wary tribe resided. Lena took a deep breath, squaring her shoulders. The sight of the tribe's domed structures, made from a shimmering material that reflected the light like a mirage, filled her with a mix of hope and apprehension. She glanced up at the Raveniks, whose massive head turned slightly to acknowledge her presence. It was as if he sensed her unease. With a determined nod, Lena stepped forward, ready to face whatever awaited them. As they entered the settlement, a hush fell over the tribe. The inhabitants, tall and lithe, with skin that shimmered in hues of blue and green, emerged to witness the strange sight of a human accompanied by the legendary Raveniks. Their eyes were wide with disbelief, and whispers filled the air like the rustle of leaves. "What sorcery is this?" one elder called out, stepping forward with a mixture of fear and curiosity. His voice trembled slightly, betraying his age and the weight of tradition. "You bring the beast of our nightmares into our midst?" Lena raised her hands in a gesture of peace, her heart racing. "I am not here to harm you," she declared, her voice steady. "I seek to show you that the Raveniks is not a monster, but a creature worthy of understanding. He has suffered as you have." The elder's brow furrowed, skepticism etched across his features. "You speak of understanding, yet this creature has brought terror to our kind for generations. How can we trust it?" Before Lena could respond, a young man stepped forward from the crowd. Arak, she had learned his name was, had an intensity in his gaze that belied his youth. "Perhaps we should listen to her," he suggested, glancing at the elder. "I have heard tales of the Raveniks, but if it is true that it shares a bond with this human, perhaps there is more to the story." The elder waved a dismissive hand. "And what do you know of our history, boy? You are too young to understand the weight of our fears." "Maybe," Arak replied, his voice rising above the murmurs. "But fear has blinded us for too long. This human has risked her life to defend the Raveniks. Is that not worth considering?" Lena felt a flicker of hope at Arak's words. "I can prove it," she said, taking a step closer to the Raveniks. "If you allow me, I can show you that he is not your enemy." The tribe watched with bated breath as Lena approached the creature, her heart pounding in her chest. She reached out a hand, brushing her fingers against the Raveniks' scales. To her delight, the beast lowered its head, allowing the tribespeople to witness the connection they had formed. "Look," Lena urged, her voice soft but firm. "He is not here to harm you. He has known pain and loss, just as you have. Together, we can learn from one another. The elder's expression softened for a moment, a flicker of doubt crossing his features. But before he could speak, the air shifted, an unsettling sensation, as if the ground itself were holding its breath. The tribespeople exchanged glances, uncertainty swirling among them. "What if this is a trick?" another voice called from the crowd, a tone filled with suspicion. "What if she is leading us to our doom?" Lena turned to face the crowd, her resolve hardening. "I understand your fear, but I ask you to look beyond it. We are all seeking survival in a world filled with danger. The Raveniks can be our ally, not our enemy." The elder crossed his arms, still wary. "You have given us much to ponder, human. But trust is not easily earned in our culture. We need time to consider your words." As the tribe retreated into murmurs and discussions, Lena felt a sense of urgency. Time was of the essence, and if she couldn't convince them soon, the Raveniks might face danger from those who could not see past their fear. She glanced at the creature beside her, who remained calm, his deep-set eyes reflecting an understanding that transcended words. Suddenly, the figure of a man emerged from the darkness, tall and rugged, with a scar running down his cheek. He was flanked by several others, all carrying weapons that gleamed menacingly in the dying light. Lena's breath hitched as she recognized their intent. They were here for the Raveniks. "Did you hear that?" one of the hunters sneered, glancing toward the direction of Lena and the beast. "I told you we'd find it here. Let's move in." Lena's mind raced. She had to act quickly. "Raveniks, we need to retreat," she said, her voice a mere whisper as she began to back away from the edge of the canyon. But the Raveniks remained still, its gaze fixed on the approaching hunters, an unsettling calmness surrounding it. "Why do they keep coming for you?" Lena murmured, not really expecting an answer. In truth, they both knew the Raveniks had been labeled a menace, a creature of legend to be hunted down. "Hey!" shouted the scarred leader, now fully aware of their presence. "We've got it cornered. Move in and flush it out." Panic surged within Lena. "We don't have time for this," she said, glancing back at the Raveniks, whose enormous body seemed poised to charge. "You can't fight them. They don't understand." "Stop right there," one of the other hunters called out, raising a weapon. "That thing is dangerous. Get away from it." Lena stepped forward, her heart pounding. "Wait. Please listen to me," she pleaded, raising her hands in a gesture of peace. "The Raveniks is not a danger. It's misunderstood. You don't have to hunt it." The leader laughed, a cruel sound that sent shivers down Lena's spine. "Misunderstood? That thing is a monster. It terrorizes our lands. We're doing everyone a favor by getting rid of it." "No!" Lena shouted, desperation creeping into her voice. "It's a guardian. It protects this desert. You're blinded by legends and fear. It's not what you think." But her words fell on deaf ears. The hunters moved closer, emboldened by their weapons and the thrill of the hunt. Lena's heart raced as she realized the gravity of the situation. If she didn't act swiftly, the Raveniks, who had become her ally, could be hurt. "Raveniks, I need you to trust me," she said, her voice steady despite the chaos around them. "We have to find a way to escape. I won't let them hurt you." The Raveniks let out a low growl, a sound that resonated in the air, filled with tension. It seemed to understand the urgency in her voice, shifting its weight as it prepared to follow her lead. Lena took a deep breath, her mind racing. "We can't let them see us. We need to blend into the shadows." As the hunters advanced, Lena grabbed the Raveniks' massive claw, her pulse racing with fear and determination. "Now," she whispered, urging the creature to move. They had to evade the hunters before it was too late. As sun dipped low on the horizon, painting the sky in hues of orange and purple, Lena stood atop a rocky outcrop, her heart pounding in her chest as she scanned the desert landscape. The winds whispered through the sand dunes, carrying with them the ominous sounds of the approaching hunters. She had heard the tales of these ruthless beings who roamed the planet, seeking the Raveniks for its legendary power. "Ravoniks!" Lena called out softly, her voice barely audible over the breeze. The creature, a towering mass of scales and muscle, emerged from the shadows of a nearby rock formation, its enormous eyes glimmering with intelligence. They had formed an unbreakable bond through their shared experiences, and now, Lena felt the weight of responsibility heavy on her shoulders. "Lena," the Raveniks rumbled, its voice resonating deep within her mind. They will come for me. They fear what they do not understand. I know, she replied, her brow furrowing in concern. But we can't let them take you. Not now, not ever. The ground trembled beneath them as the hunters approached, their harsh laughter echoing through the canyon. Lena's heart raced as she crouched beside the Raveniks, formulating a plan in her mind. We need to outsmart them. We can lure them into a trap. The Raveniks lowered its massive head, considering her words. You wish to face them? You risk your life for me. Lena met the creature's gaze, determination shining in her eyes. You're not just a creature to be hunted. You're my friend. We'll do this together. As the hunters drew closer, Lena felt the tension in the air thickening. She could hear their voices, taunting and cruel, as they boasted about their conquest. Once we capture the Raveniks, the galaxy will tremble before us, one of them shouted, his voice dripping with malice. Let them come, Lena whispered to the Raveniks, and we'll show them what true strength is. In that moment, Lena realized their journey together had only just begun, and the true challenge lay ahead, not just in facing external threats, but in breaking down the barriers of fear and prejudice that separated them from the tribe. Lena stood in the center of the makeshift clearing, the sun casting long shadows on the desert sand. The air was thick with tension, the alien tribe surrounding her, their eyes full of skepticism and mistrust. They had witnessed her bond with the colossal Raveniks, but fear still gripped their hearts, fueled by generations of stories that painted the creature as a monster. Lena's heart raced as she prepared to demonstrate the connection she had forged with the creature, knowing that this was her chance to change their minds. Listen, she called out, her voice steady despite the uncertainty swirling within her. The Raveniks is not what you think it is. It's a guardian of this land, not a threat. I will show you. She glanced back at the Raveniks, its massive form looming behind her, scales shimmering in the light. The beast seemed to sense her determination, lowering its massive head as if to listen. A murmur of disbelief rippled through the tribe. One elder, a tall figure with intricate tattoos adorning his face, stepped forward. You risk our safety, human. The stories of the Raveniks are not mere tales. It has brought destruction to our people. His voice was deep, echoing the weight of his people's fear. Lena took a deep breath and replied, but those tales are born from misunderstanding. I have seen its pain and its heart. Please, just give me a moment to show you. She gestured toward the Raveniks, who remained still, its eyes locked onto Lena, as if sensing her resolve. With a nod from the elder, Lena approached the Raveniks, heart pounding in her chest. Come on, big guy, she whispered, reaching out her hand to the creature. Show them your true self. She placed her hand on its rough, warm scales, feeling the rhythm of its heartbeat resonate through her palm. The Raveniks let out a low rumble, not of aggression, but of familiarity and comfort. As Lena stood there, a series of images flashed in her mind, memories of the creature's past, fleeing from hunters, protecting its territory from intruders, and the loneliness of a life spent in fear. She felt the weight of its sorrow and for the first time, understood the tragedy behind its fearsome reputation. Look, she exclaimed, turning back to the tribe. Do you see? It feels pain just like us. It has lost so much. She gestured animatedly, her passion igniting the air around her. This isn't a monster, it's a soul, just like yours. Just like mine. A young member of the tribe, Arak, stepped forward, his brow furrowing in contemplation. But how can we trust it? It could turn on us at any moment, he challenged, skepticism lacing his tone. Lena's heart sank at his words, but she knew she had to remain strong. Trust isn't given, it's earned. I know it's hard to believe, but I'm asking you to open your hearts. The Raveniks has saved me from danger. It has shown me kindness when I was afraid. She looked directly into Arak's eyes, pleading with him to see beyond the surface. Please, let me show you it can be trusted. Arak's gaze shifted from Lena to the Raveniks, as if weighing the enormity of her words. The elder watched silently, arms crossed, his expression a mix of skepticism and intrigue. Okay, I will watch, Arak finally said, his voice firm yet hesitant. But if it shows even a hint of aggression, I will not hesitate to defend my people. Lena nodded, relief washing over her. That's all I ask. She turned back to the Raveniks, her voice softening. Just be gentle, my friend. Show them who you truly are. The giant creature took a step forward, lowering its head even further, its massive eyes reflecting a sense of understanding. Lena's heart soared as she felt the connection between them deepen, the bond forged in adversity now a beacon of hope. As she stepped back, she could feel the tribe's tension begin to ease, some members leaning in, curiosity replacing their fear. Lena smiled, the first glimmer of acceptance shining in their eyes. The journey toward understanding had begun, and with it, the possibility of a new narrative, one not defined by fear, but by connection and empathy. As the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the alien landscape in hues of crimson and indigo, Lena Carter and the Raveniks lay nestled against the rocky outcrop of a canyon. The soft rustling of the wind through the sands created a serene backdrop, momentarily lulling them into a false sense of security. The bond they had forged over the past days had grown deeper than Lena ever imagined possible. Yet, in the distance, a low rumble of voices began to echo, cutting through the quiet night. Lena's eyes shot open, instinctively alert. She sat up, her heart racing as she strained to listen. "Do you hear that, Raveniks?" she whispered, glancing at the creature beside her. Its large, luminescent eyes flickered in the twilight, reflecting a mix of curiosity and concern. She reached out, brushing her fingers against its rough scales. "Something's coming. We need to be careful." The Raveniks tilted its massive head, attuned to the sounds emanating from the encroaching darkness. It responded with a low rumble that resonated deep within Lena's chest, a sound that conveyed its understanding and readiness. However, as the voices grew nearer, Lena's heart sank. She recognized the tone, harsh, aggressive. These were no ordinary travelers. They were hunters, and they were armed. "Stay close to me," Lena instructed, her voice steady but urgent. The Raveniks shifted slightly, its massive form casting a shadow over her, a protective barrier against the encroaching threat. With a swift motion, Lena led the Raveniks down a narrow path that wound through the rocky terrain. "Trust me," she urged, glancing back at the creature. "We'll use the shadows to our advantage." When they reached a hidden alcove, Lena crouched low behind a rock, her heart pounding. "They'll be here any moment. We need to coordinate our movements. I'll distract them, and you'll flank from the side." The Raveniks nodded, its powerful limbs tensing as it prepared for action. "I will follow your lead." Just then, the hunters burst into the clearing, their weapons glinting in the fading light. "Where is the beast?" "It must be here," one of them shouted. Lena took a deep breath, her pulse quickening. "Now!" she cried out, springing into action. She emerged from her hiding spot, waving her arms dramatically. "Here I am. Come and get me." The hunters turned, startled by her sudden appearance. "What is this? A human?" "She's alone," one of them sneered, drawing closer. As they focused on her, Lena caught a glimpse of the Raveniks moving silently through the shadows, its massive form blending seamlessly with the rocks. "You're making a mistake," Lena shouted, hoping to keep their attention. "You think you can capture the Raveniks? You have no idea what you're dealing with." "Shut her up," another hunter growled, raising his weapon. But before he could pull the trigger, the Raveniks lunged from its hiding spot, a fearsome roar erupting from its throat. The ground shook as the creature charged at the hunters, its massive body a blur of motion. Lena felt the adrenaline surge through her veins as she watched the Raveniks take down one of the hunters with a swift, powerful swipe of its claw. "Now Arak!" she yelled, spotting the young alien from the tribe who had joined her as an ally. Arak, having found his courage, leaped into action at her command. "I'm with you," he shouted, charging forward alongside the Raveniks. Together, they fought valiantly against the hunters. The Raveniks' sheer size and strength overwhelmed their attackers, while Lena and Arak worked in tandem to outmaneuver them. "You're not the monsters you think we are," Arak yelled as he dodged a swinging weapon, delivering a swift kick to one of the hunters. Lena's heart swelled with pride as she saw the transformation in Arak. He was no longer just a bystander, he was fighting for a cause greater than himself. As they battled, the hunters began to realize the tide was turning. "Retreat!" one of them shouted, panic rising in his voice. "Fall back. We can't take them." Lena and Arak exchanged glances, exhilaration coursing through them. They had turned the hunters' fear against them, and with the Raveniks at their side, they had become a force to be reckoned with. As the last of the hunters fled into the desert, Lena felt a surge of triumph. "Together we did it!" she exclaimed, her heart racing. The Raveniks stood tall beside her, a guardian and a friend, and for the first time, she felt a true sense of unity with the world around her. After the dust settled from the confrontation with the hunters, the atmosphere around Lena and the Raveniks transformed. The once skeptical members of the alien tribe began to gather, their expressions shifting from fear to curiosity. Lena stood beside the colossal creature, her heart swelling with a mix of pride and relief. The Raveniks, once a figure of terror, had become a symbol of strength and resilience. "Lena!" called out Arak, the young tribesman who had begun to question the old tales. He approached her with a newfound respect in his eyes, his posture less defensive than before. "You've shown us that the Raveniks is not our enemy. But how can we ensure that others will see it this way?" Lena smiled warmly at him. "It's about understanding and sharing our experiences. We have to show them that the Raveniks is capable of friendship, just as we are. We can't let fear dictate our actions anymore." As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows across the desert, the tribe gathered around a fire. Lena took a position beside the Raveniks, who lay protectively close, its massive body radiating warmth. The tribe's elder, a wise figure named Tarek, stepped forward, his voice steady and commanding. "Tonight we celebrate not just our survival but the bond formed between Lena, the human, and the Raveniks, the once feared beast." He gestured to Lena. "It is through understanding that we can break the chains of ignorance." The tribe murmured in agreement, their faces illuminated by the flickering flames. Lena felt a wave of gratitude wash over her as she watched the tribe begin to accept the creature she had come to see as a friend. "Let us honor this bond with a story," Tarek continued, gesturing toward the stars. "In our past, we have feared the dark, but tonight, we embrace the light of unity." As the elder spoke, Lena felt the Raveniks lean closer, its massive head lowered, as if listening intently. She had never felt more connected to the creature. "You understand them, don't you?" she whispered, resting her hand on one of its shimmering scales. The Raveniks responded with a soft rumble, almost like a purr, and Lena smiled at the sound. She turned back to the tribe, her voice carrying over the crackling fire. "Together, we can learn from each other. The Raveniks has seen so much, just like all of us. Let us share our stories." Arak stepped forward, emboldened by Lena's words. "I once believed the Raveniks was a monster, but after witnessing its true nature, I know that we can learn to coexist. We are all shaped by our pasts, but we have the power to change our futures." A ripple of agreement echoed through the crowd, and Lena felt a surge of hope. "Let's create a new story for the Raveniks," she suggested, her voice vibrant with enthusiasm. "One where it is not just a creature of fear, but a guardian of the desert, a friend to those who seek to understand." "Indeed," Tarek exclaimed, raising his arms. "Let this be the night we redefine our legends. Let us show that our strength lies in compassion and understanding." As the fire crackled and the stars twinkled above, Lena felt the weight of her journey lift. The Raveniks, once an enigma, now belonged to a community that would protect and cherish it. She glanced at the creature, its eyes glinting with a mixture of wisdom and warmth, and knew that they had forged something unbreakable. But amidst the celebration, a flicker of unease stirred deep within Lena. While the tribe embraced the Raveniks, she couldn't shake the feeling that outside threats still loomed. "We must prepare," she murmured to herself, her gaze drifting to the horizon. "There's much more at stake than just our bond." As the night wore on, laughter and stories filled the air, weaving a tapestry of connection and hope. Lena knew that their journey was far from over, but for tonight, she and the Raveniks had found a place in the hearts of the tribe. Together, they would explore the mysteries of this alien world, united against the shadows that threatened to encroach upon their newfound harmony. As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting a warm golden hue over the alien landscape, Lena stood at the edge of the encampment with a sense of urgency. The tribe was buzzing with activity, preparing for a confrontation that felt inevitable. Whispers of more powerful hunters had reached their ears, and Lena knew that time was running out. The Raveniks, now a revered figure among the tribe, rested nearby, its massive form a comforting presence against the encroaching darkness. "Lena," Arak approached, his brow furrowed with concern. "What if they come for the Raveniks again? We can't let that happen." "We won't," Lena replied, her voice steady yet laced with determination. "We need to unite our strengths, gather allies from the surrounding areas. If we can show them the truth about the Raveniks, we might stand a chance." Arak nodded, though his eyes reflected doubt. "But how? The tales of the Raveniks' terror run deep. Many will not easily change their minds. Lena took a deep breath, remembering the times she had faced insurmountable odds. We have to prove that the true threat lies with the hunters, not with the creature who has protected us. We need to show them that the Ravenix is on our side. As the evening darkened, they gathered around a flickering fire, the tribe members listening intently to Lena's plan. We will prepare an ambush, she explained, her voice rising with confidence. We'll send word to nearby tribes, those who have also suffered at the hands of these hunters. Together, we can set a trap. A murmur of agreement rippled through the crowd, but one voice rose above the rest, filled with skepticism. And what will it cost us? An elder asked, his face shadowed in the firelight. Every time we face them, we lose something precious. Lena met his gaze, unflinching. If we do nothing, we will lose everything. The Ravenix is not just a beast, it is a guardian. We must fight for this land and for each other. After a long moment of silence, the elder nodded slowly, finally convinced. Then we will follow you, Lena Carter. But know this, if there is a sacrifice to be made, we must be prepared. As they strategized into the night, Arak pulled Lena aside. I have a plan, he said, his voice low. But it requires something significant. What do you mean? Lena asked, concern knitting her brows together. I've heard of a secret route the hunters use to enter our territory. We can set up an ambush at the canyon just beyond the dunes. But it will require us to lure them in, and that might mean putting ourselves in danger. Lena felt a chill run down her spine. Are you suggesting we act as bait? Yes, Arak replied, his eyes fierce. It's risky, but if executed correctly, we might catch them off guard. But we must be ready to fight. Lena hesitated, weighing the gravity of his proposal. What if we fail? What if someone gets hurt? Arak placed a hand on her shoulder, his expression earnest. If we don't take this chance, we're already defeated. We've seen what they can do. We must be willing to fight for our future and for the Ravenix. With a heavy heart, Lena nodded. Okay, let's prepare. We'll need all the help we can get. As dawn broke, painting the sky in shades of pink and orange, Lena and Arak rallied the tribe. They shared their plan, emphasizing the need for unity and courage. We are not just fighting for the Ravenix, Lena declared, her voice echoing across the gathered crowd. We are fighting for our families, our homes, and the right to live without fear. With the tribe's resolve solidified, Lena felt a surge of determination. They gathered weapons, set traps, and readied themselves for the day ahead. As they moved into position at the canyon, Lena glanced at the Ravenix, who stood by her side, a silent guardian. Together we can do this, she whispered to the creature, feeling a bond that transcended their differences. The Ravenix lowered its massive head, as if understanding her words, and Lena knew they were ready to face whatever came next. But deep within her heart, she felt the weight of the unknown. Would their plan work? Would they be able to protect the Ravenix and their tribe? The answers loomed on the horizon, just out of reach, as the shadows of the hunters began to encroach upon their world. As battle cries echoed across the vast expanse of the desert, dust and sand swirling in chaotic patterns as Lena, with adrenaline coursing through her veins, found herself at the heart of a desperate struggle. The alien night sky was illuminated by flashes of energy weapons and the roars of the Ravenix, its colossal form a blur of scales and fury. In the midst of the chaos, Lena felt a sudden and profound connection with the creature, as if their minds were intertwining in a dance of thought and emotion. Ravenix, she whispered, her voice barely audible over the cacophony. I need you to trust me. We can win this together. The creature paused, its massive head turning to lock eyes with her, a deep understanding sparking between them. In that moment, Lena felt an unexpected surge of power. It was as if a bridge had formed between her and the Ravenix, unlocking a hidden ability she never knew she possessed. Can you hear me? She concentrated, allowing her thoughts to flow freely. We need to coordinate our attack. To her astonishment, the Ravenix responded with a low rumble that resonated deep within her. Its thoughts flooded into her mind, a whirlwind of instinct and strategy. Together, it seemed to say, we are strong. Just as she began to formulate a plan, a sharp cry pierced the air. Lena, watch out. It was Arak, rushing towards her, his face pale with urgency. He stumbled, barely dodging a blast from one of the hunters. We're outnumbered. We need to fall back. No. Lena shouted, her resolve hardening. We have to fight. We can't let them take the Raveniks. She turned to Arak, determination etched across her features. We can do this. We can turn the tides. But before Arak could reply, a blinding explosion rocked the ground beneath them. Dust and debris clouded the air, and Lena felt herself being thrown backward. When she regained her footing, she spotted Arak lying on the ground, clutching his side, blood seeping through his fingers. Arak. Lena rushed to his side, panic gripping her heart. Stay with me. You'll be okay. She pressed her hands against the wound, her mind racing. She could hear the chaos of battle around her, but all she could focus on was Arak's pain. I'm fine, he gasped, his voice strained. You need to focus on the Raveniks. It needs you. Just then, Lena felt the Raveniks beside her, its towering form casting a protective shadow over them. We can't lose you, she said, her voice trembling. You're a part of this fight.
Lena, listen.
Arak's gaze locked onto hers, an intensity burning in his eyes. I'm not who you think I am. I've been sent to infiltrate your tribe. My people, they are the hunters. Shock washed over Lena. What? She whispered, her heart sinking. But you fought alongside us. You stood with us. I know, he replied, his voice barely a whisper. But I couldn't go through with it. Not anymore. He winced in pain but pressed on, his expression earnest. You've shown me a different way. I can't let them take the Raveniks. Then help us. Lena pleaded, desperation creeping into her voice. We need you. We can't do this without you. With a slow, pained nod, Arak reached for his weapon, determination replacing fear. All right. Let's end this. As they prepared for the final assault, Lena felt the connection with the Raveniks swell again. Together, she thought, and the creature roared in agreement. The battlefield transformed into a symphony of chaos. The Raveniks charged forward, each step shaking the ground as Lena and Arak followed closely behind. Now, she shouted, directing the creature's movements with newfound clarity. With a coordinated strike, they launched a surprise attack on the hunters, who were taken aback by the united front of human and beast. The Raveniks unleashed its fury, while Lena and Arak fought valiantly by its side. But just as victory seemed within reach, a blaster shot rang out, striking Arak in the shoulder. He staggered, falling to his knees. No! Lena screamed, rushing to his side, her heart racing. Go, he urged, his voice strained. You have to finish this. With tears blurring her vision, Lena turned to the battlefield. The Raveniks roared in fury, sensing the urgency of the moment. We can do this, she cried, channeling the strength of her newfound bond with the creature. In a final climactic moment, Lena and the Raveniks surged forward. The creature unleashed a devastating attack, sending the hunters scrambling. As Lena stood at the forefront of the battle, she felt a surge of unity and purpose. As the dust settled and the last of the hunters fled, Lena turned back to Arak, who lay on the ground, pale but alive. We did it, she whispered, her heart racing with a mix of relief and sorrow. But as the shadows lengthened, a sense of foreboding washed over her. In the distance, she could see figures emerging, whispers of a more powerful threat looming on the horizon, promising a new journey filled with uncertainty and hope.